Hello and welcome to Total Destruction Volume 5, Water and Snow. Creating water effects is something that I personally find very interesting, but I also find particularly challenging. And this is why my goal for this course is to gradually introduce you to the principles of using the flip fluid and gradually build our knowledge until we're finally very comfortable using the tool to create not only water simulations and ocean surfaces, but to also use a flip solver in new and creative ways. So before we start, I want to give you an overview of the course and a few things that we will be talking about and also a few things that we won't, just to make things clear. So the flip solver in itself is a very big topic. So we will be focusing on the actual simulations, not only with the flip solver, but also with the ocean spectrum. But we won't focus on rendering. This is a whole other topic that can be touched in future courses. But again, in this specific course, we will focus on the simulations, and I will provide a hip file for each one of them. Please consider that we won't be providing file caches, simply because we will be generating extremely large files and it would be cumbersome both to upload them and to download them. However, I will provide geometry for you to create the exercises and you can use freely afterwards. Another very important thing to consider is, as I mentioned before, water simulations is a huge topic and we will be covering basic and intermediate level concepts, but we won't go into the very intricate and advanced topics. Let's now talk about a few considerations regarding the flip solver. First of all, and of course the most obvious, is that it can be used to create very realistic water simulations. And my guess is that's why you're here. We'll learn how to create waterfalls, splashes, waves, and similar effects. But it can also be used to create other liquid simulations like blood, honey, lava, or even molten metal. But what it's not very obvious is that the flip solver can also be used in very creative ways. In this particular course, we will use it to create snow, but you could also use it to create sand, magical, or abstract effects. Now, on the other hand, the flip solver can be a bit daunting at first, but this is why I'm going to try to go very slowly and understand the core concepts so you can become very familiar with the tools at your disposal and have the confidence to use this knowledge in almost any situation. Now, one very important thing about flip simulations is that it can be very expensive. And with this, I mean not only computationally intensive, but it will also require very, very long simulation times and a huge amount of disk space. I will try to show you throughout the course several techniques to optimize your scenes. Do consider that it would be recommendable to have at least 100 gigabytes of free disk space. And one final consideration is that even though you can learn to create beautiful simulations and very realistic sims, it is still quite difficult to create photorealistic results. But this is exactly why we're here, to acquire the tools to create the most beautiful simulations that we can. Finally, before we dive into Houdini, I want to talk about a very important topic, and that is how the data flows when creating flip simulations. Usually, our goal will be to create a mesh or geometry to be rendered. And for that, we need to first input some information to the solver. And what we need to feed the solver is at least points or particles. And in most cases, we will feed points and an SDF volume, a surface volume. So these two go into the solver, and the solver will output the particles, an SDF, and a new volume with a velocity. So in the end, we will use all these three elements to generate the final mesh. Let's now dive into Houdini and take a look at how this works in a practical way.